Been here a long time. So my grandfather talked my father into coming down. We were in Jacksonville, into coming down here to southwest Florida and starting a turpentine operation because he knew of a stand of pines, virgin pines, that was in eastern Sarasota County. What we had down here was called a turpentine camp and a still. There were no white people involved in turpentining, actual production. It was a big industry at one time. It was the biggest industry probably in the southeast. But anyway, that's what brought us here, and that's how we acquired this property, was for turpentining. When I got out of service after the Second World War and got out of college, I came down here to manage the property. Forestry has to be a very patient occupation. I rely on natural reproduction, which this South Florida slash is real good about that. Our problem is too much, and we have to thin it down. What we do rely on here, a lot of places where the trees come up real thick, we'll come in and thin it for fence posts. That's one reason. When I got out of school, I had forestry in mind pretty much, but the more I thought about it, the fact that it takes a long time to grow a pine tree. If you've got a 40-year rotation, you got to eat in the meanwhile. So cattle is a much faster turnover. So I decided to start raising some cattle. So we are a combination cattle ranch, forestry operation, and whatever else. Prior to in the mid-'80s, nobody planted much citrus down in this area. And when I went to school back in the 1940s, professor who taught citrus culture said that no, you can't grow citrus down there in that flatwoods country. And so it wasn't considered citrus land. Well, in the 1980s, we had a series of freezes throughout most of Florida, and over a period of 4 or 5 years, it killed all the citrus in Central Florida. Well, the industry, rather than putting back citrus groves, they put them back into houses. Now, if you ride up US 27 through all that citrus area, there's nothing but houses as far as eye can see. And the industry moved south. So about 10, 12 years ago, we decided it would be a good idea to branch out into citrus. And so we did. We planted this 300 acres of citrus. Back in my father's time and really early on when I started, we could do most anything without a permit. Well, every piece of land has an effect on water. And so in order to farm a piece of land like that, you've got to go to the district and get a permit. I used to think that all this regulation was terrible, and there are a lot of people that still do. I've been here all my life in Florida, and I've watched it go from back when I was a boy, and there were about 1 million people, I think, in the whole state, and if that many. And I've watched the land being gobbled up into all sorts of developments, not only just agriculture, but you fly over the states, and there are mobile home parks everywhere, and there are roads, and there are vast areas that have been cleared for this, that, or the other, and housing developments. I came to the conclusion a long time ago that we have to be regulated. And as a matter of fact, I've been involved with regulation when I was on the Water Management District Board. I filled in for my neighbor, Mabry Carlton, was the county commissioner for a number of years. And they have the Carlton Ranch. They're our next door neighbors here. He used to fly his airplane around. He helped to herd his cattle in an airplane. He'd get up there and direct his men on the ground where the cattle were, where to go get them, and so forth. One time, unfortunately, he had a problem, and we don't know exactly what the problem was, but anyway, he crashed and killed himself. And then I started getting a lot of phone calls for the next week because there were several people who wanted me to take his place, finish out his term. Well, I had to think long and hard about that because I had no ambitions at all of ever being in politics. I'd never been in politics in my life. Hadn't even thought about it. But a number of people persuaded me to go ahead and put my hat in the ring, so I did, and the governor appointed me as interim commissioner. So I served for a couple of years on the commission, and it was an enlightening experience. Our big project was to purchase the Peace River water plant. They scalp water off of the Peace River. They got it rigged so that they can only take water when the flow meets a certain level, as measured at the bridge in Arcadia. When that water level goes down below so many cubic feet per second, they have to shut the pumps off down there. And that's when we established the Peace River Water Supply Authority, and it bought that plant from General Development. That was a long, tedious process too, getting the various political entities to join in on it. Charlotte County didn't want any part of it, but we hammered at it and hammered, and eventually they came around. We got the job done, and today it's one of the finest business part of Florida. For years there was a fear that we were going to run out of water. Our population was growing, so we didn't have enough sources of water to feed everybody, and there were some times when things got kind of low. But I feel now with this system and some of the smaller entities that can tie into it, we're pretty safe for a long time to go as far as fresh water. In my estimation, in time, and this is something I have thought for many, many years since I first started here, that sooner or later these natural areas are going to be valuable. And eventually, when they become scarce, the public will realize their value. They have numerous values to the public, and nowadays the public is beginning to realize that. That's how we get able to get paid for a conservation easement. Right now we have a mitigation area for the gopher tortoise, and that brings in income. And we have wetland mitigation areas that we have restored that we get credits for that we can sell to developers. And I foresee in time to come carbon credits and various things like that. Our environmental capital will be our main source of income.